following announcement has been paid for by the new Howl Order.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, Washington falls for the second time in a month to the Philadelphia Eagles. This time 38-31, dropping Washington to 3-5 on the season, and really setting off a chain of events that I think is going to have ripple effects throughout this season and maybe moving forward into the future. They're going to move Montez Sweat, and we've gotten a bit of clarity on that subject matter, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But I want to talk about yesterday's game. I want to talk about the keys to the game that we had going in to the Week 8 contest versus the Eagles and how we fared there, and just the missed opportunity. And I went back and watched the game again, and it was a painful one because while it was fun and I enjoyed most of the game, the missed opportunities were glaring. You know, the defense is a problem, and that's not new news. That's not breaking news. You scored 31, you should win the game. We give up 38, we lose. The first time we played the Eagles, we scored 31, we gave up 34, we lost. And unlike the first game where we didn't turn it over, so there really wasn't any excuse, there was a turnover in this game. And that did impact the defense negatively. And you don't need that, and you don't want that. But yes, the officials were very controversial, and going back, the one that really just sticks out like a sore thumb for me is the Jahan Dotson play. Like, how is it that New York gets involved on a play that isn't challenged by the Eagles? Like, the New York they're supposed to force the Eagles to challenge that, and then they can overturn it if there's enough visual evidence. The call on the field was a catch. It should have remained as such, and if the Eagles had an issue with that, they should have challenged prior to the 2-minute warning. Not New York stepping in on an expedited challenge. They're only supposed to step in on an expedited challenge to right a wrong that is clear and obvious. That was not that play. That bothers me. That just doesn't sit right with me. But that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is we made too many mistakes. And I said that after the game, and I'm doubling down on that. The opportunities were there to win this football game, and unfortunately, we didn't take advantage. A great example is the 4th and 1 call. I still hate it, okay? I still hate the call. I hate not getting under center. Even if you're going to throw it, get under center. The threat of the run needs to be apparent. When you go empty, which is what they did on that play, they know you're not running the football. But with that said, Sam was always working Terry. So this is irrelevant. The Eagles blew coverage on that play. And if you go back and you watch it, Curtis Samuel is screaming up the field for an easy walk-in touchdown. Sam's not working that side of the field, so I'm not going to even belabor the point. It's not like Sam was staring that thing down and didn't go to Curtis. He was working Terry the entire time. He was going to throw the ball to Terry, but had he come off of Terry, Curtis Samuel's in the end zone for an easy. The Eagles blew coverage multiple times in this game, including the Byron Pringle deep shot, right? He's open for a touchdown, and unfortunately on that play, Chris Paul got beat one of the few times on the day. I think it was Mike being the only time, really. He got beat by Jalen Carter, but it wasn't Carter's pressure. It was the blitzing linebacker that had one-on-one with, I want to say it was Brian Robinson, and Robinson got enough of him to let Sam get it off, but that guy was at Sam's feet, and Carter was up around, Sam's upper region, and so it altered his throw for sure. That was one of the few pockets that was muddy all day long, and that's why he missed Pringle on that deep shot. I still think if Pringle doesn't stumble, trying to track the football, I still think he runs under that thing and catches it and walks in for a touchdown. But we scored a touchdown on that drive, so I don't even really want to, again, overdo it, because I'm more so upset at opportunities missed when you don't get anything versus the ones where you ultimately go on to score a touchdown, and we did. Just like the penalty on Logan Thomas on that bogus cut block penalty that we overcame it in 2 plays and scored a touchdown. That was the Jahan touchdown to go up 14-3. I'm not tripping over that. Yeah, it was a bad call. It was a horrible call, but we scored a touchdown. I'm not tripping about it. Had we settled for a field goal, now we would have had a gripe. But we scored a touchdown. I'm not tripping over that. The bottom line is we made too many mistakes. You know what the mistakes were. The 4th and 1 call I thought was hideous. I thought overall, though, I thought it was a really good day by EB. I still would like to see the run game be more prominent, but all in all, it was a good day by EB. I still think that the threat of the run, when you're running it as well as we were, we had some good hits. Even that Logan Thomas play, another under center run, that they called back. That's an 11-yard run inside the 5-yard line. Like, we're killing them on the ground in this game. And as I've mentioned already, Brian Robinson averaged over almost 6 yards a carry in this game. Like, he should have gotten more opportunities. But again, we featured Alex Arma and under center runs in the first half, none which to speak of in the second half. I don't think we got under center one time in the second half, which is just an abomination because it was working so well, and I thought that was something that could have really benefited us. But we gifted them this game. We had them dead to rights at 14-3 with the football at the 2-minute warning. This game was there for the taking at 4th and 1. That's where the game changed. Everything that happened thereafter happened, and we had opportunities. I still am upset at the defense. We put together a beautiful, well-constructed, best drive of the season, 14-play, 6-minute drive to take the lead, 24-17, and the defense gives it up immediately, and it's tied. And then Sam throws the pick, and it gives the Eagles the lead, and then, the fumble on the last possession after the 2 drops, and the bogus call on Jahan. I don't consider that a drop. I consider that a bad call by the officiating crew and by New York if they stepped in. But at the end of the day, my biggest takeaway is that this defense under Jack Del Rio it's not coached up well enough. It's malpractice what we're seeing from this defense. Jalen Hurts was compromised yesterday, and we all saw it. Even on the play to Devontae Smith, where it's incomplete, but they called it a catch. Hurts is trying to hustle up. He can barely get up to the line of scrimmage to snap the ball. He's so compromised, and yet we let him stand back there all day and have 50 million years. I looked at the first catch that Emmanuel Forbes gave up to A.J. Brown on the right sideline, and I clocked it because he was standing back there all effing day. He had 3.4 seconds on that play, which is asinine, okay? We talk about quick triggers and guys getting the ball out of their hands in 2.1 and 2.2 seconds. We talked about how quickly Sam was pressured with 2 seconds to throw the football against the Giants and how ridiculous it was. This man had 3.4 seconds to throw the football. A.J. Brown ran a faux double move. He stopped at the top of his route, came back. This is like a 17-yard comeback. No pressure. We just let Jalen Hurts stand back there. And then the blitzes were so elementary. They're the kind of blitzes you draw up on a sheet of paper. Like, hey, this, and you're teaching it to some 5-year-olds in flag football. This is what we're going to do. All right. Every gap is accounted for. Everybody's going to, it's almost like you're trying to make sure you get blocked. We're going to rush into every single gap according to their blocking scheme so that nobody gets in and everybody's accounted for. Everybody fits into every gap like a puzzle piece. You fit in right here in this A gap. You fit in this B gap. You fit in this C gap. Nobody gets in. They'll pinch this. The running back will take the unblocked defender. The one guy that may be free is too far because he's coming from the moon, and nobody gets in. And Hurts has an additional 3 seconds to throw the football and find somebody open down the field. It was incredible how lackluster these blitzes were when you watch them on tape. You're like, this is insane. And they did run a slot blitz. And he was coming from 85 yards away. Normally when a guy's on a slot blitz, he kind of comes up, hugs the line of scrimmage, acts like he's not looking at the quarterback, but, he's itching to come, pause. But he's at the line of scrimmage and then he takes off as the ball snap. Juice is playing off coverage, like 6 yards off, and then he blitzes. Like, what are we doing? We can't even do that right. Anyway, this defense is a problem. You know, they're just not coached well enough. Anyway, let's get to the keys of the game real quick. So on offense, the first key to the game was Washington needed to start fast. They actually did that. Similar to the Falcons game, similar to the Eagles game the first time around. Like I said, every even game, for the most part, they start fast on offense. This is the trend. It continued in week 8. And you can't really start much faster than we did outside of not scoring on the first possession. And just as a side note, Sam Howell was given more autonomy at the line of scrimmage in this game. I can't stress this enough. The offensive line was incredible. And if you're going to have a shorter quarterback like Sam, it is imperative that the interior of your offensive line from guard to guard is as stout as it can possibly be. I don't need athletic, rangy, undersized guards and centers like you would in a more athletic-based offensive scheme, like a zone run blocking scheme where you need those guys to get to those reach blocks and things of that nature. I need big behemoths inside that are going to keep the integrity and the cup of the pocket intact. That's what you have now in Chris Paul and Tyler Larson. These are some big men, right? Along with Sam Cosmi. They did a phenomenal job. But Sam had the ability, unlike the previous 7 weeks, to audible at the line of scrimmage, to make sight adjustments. So, for instance, the first possession of the game, Sam saw pressure on the third down. Now, we ultimately had to punt. But he saw pressure from the Eagles, and he audibled to that quick screen to Curtis Samuel on that third down that we didn't convert. Now, while it didn't work, I love the fact that he was aware that a blitz was coming, and he was given the autonomy. He was given the control at the line of scrimmage, the power to be able to say, hey, we saw him make changes at the line of scrimmage. This is the first week we've seen him, screaming out to guys, hey, 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 hey. That's the first game we've seen him doing that. This is the first game he's been given a couple of tools at the line of scrimmage to be able to use at his disposal, at his discretion. That means they trust him more, and he's growing within the scheme. And you saw the end result, right? So that was a sight for sore eyes. As he continues to grow and gets more reps, these are the things that they can continue to put on his plate now and give him more and more as he continues to grow, right? Like I said, he's a baby. He's a puppy. But as he continues to get more starts, he continues to grow. You can give him more, and he can show you if he can handle it or not. And obviously, that was another step in the right direction. And we'll talk about what head coach Ronald Rivera had to say in terms of Sam's development. So we started fast in this game. We really did. 14-3 with the football, with a chance to go up 21-3 and put the Eagles out of their misery. It was there. Everything we wanted was there, and we let them off the hook. Next Washington offensive key to the game was protect Sam Howell. It was the best protection he had all season long. I told L.A.B. and those on the Super Friends stream we were making some changes and that they weren't going to really affect us. We're not afraid of the Eagles pass rush. Now, with the game on the line, you hate that their best pass rusher had a one-on-one with our worst pass protector, and he won at the most critical. And this is the difference between the Eagles and us. At the most crucial juncture of the game, their best pass rusher made a game-changing play when they needed it the most. That's what your best players are supposed to do. We have two guys on our end that rarely do that. Tez has done that this year. We needed him in the Arizona game, and he came up clutch for us twice in that game. So I'm not knocking him because he's done it, but Chase Young hasn't done it. So we rarely do guys step up in those situations for us, which is why we're so frustrated. But for the most part, that's the only sack. Now, there was an intentional grounding that they called that would have resulted in the sack had he not gotten rid of it. But for the most part, Sam had time all day long. And it wasn't just dinking and dunking. He had time back there in the pocket to stand, survey, and push the ball down the field. And so protect Sam Howell, I said it was on everybody, including the play caller. And I thought EB coming out with the quick game and the screens early to set the tone and the tempo really kept the Eagles off balance. And it set the tone for the day that we were going to be able to throw the football at will, whether it was short and quick or it was deep and down the field. So they did a phenomenal, and I thought the running backs, let me just give them their flowers right now too, or let me give them their cold one. I don't give out flowers. I give out to-dos. I give out cold ones. Let me hand a couple of cold ones to the running backs. I thought they did a phenomenal job in pass protection. There were a couple of times where they came up and they stonewalled Eagle defenders that were blitzing, coming in 1,000,000 miles per second, and it gave Sam an opportunity to deliver the football down the field. So shout out to the running backs for getting it done as well. So we got a full point for protecting Sam Howell. Get your best players the ball. I had talked about this prior to the game. It was imperative that we start getting our best players the ball. It's not rocket science. I told you this shit is not hard. When you get your best players the ball, your offense just runs smoother. When guys that are playmakers are touching it, good things happen. I said I needed 6 touches for Terry in the game. I think he ended up with 5 catches, and he should have had 7. He dropped 2 of them. But that's nor here nor there. And, you know, with better throws, again, he missed Terry in the end zone on a deep ball that was there. But we scored a touchdown on that drive. So, again, I'm not tripping about it. But Terry had 5 touches in this game. I said he needed 6. So, and he had opportunities. He had 12 targets. I'm not tripping. I mean, that's where it needs to be every week. I said Jahan needed to have 5 touches. Jahan had 8 touches on 9 targets in this game for 108 yards and a touchdown. Right? I said Curtis needed to have 5 touches. He had 4, and he left in the second quarter and didn't return, and he had 4 already. He was well on his way to having 5 or 6 catches, 7 catches, and probably a touchdown as well. So, and we saw what Crowder ended up doing. That would have been Curtis Samuel. So, we got playmakers involved. We got the guys that needed to touch. And Logan was really clutch. Sam had 4 touchdown passes to 4 different receivers. He targeted 10 different guys in this game. He was locked in. This offense was locked in, and EB as a play caller was locked in. Again, I would have done it differently on 4th and 1. I would have gotten under center a little bit more. And we'll talk about that tomorrow, you know, getting under center. I think that's a conversation that needs to be had. But we got our best players the ball. We got a full point there. And the last offensive key of the game, 3rd down, red zone, and playing the Eagles. We got a full point there as well. We had our best 3rd down percentage of the season. We were 7 for 12, which is 55%. We were 2 of 2 in the red zone. We didn't miss 1 time in the red zone. And then we only turned it over once. And the penalties were kept to a minimum. They weren't egregious. And they didn't really hurt us in the grand scheme of things. They weren't drive killers like they had been in the past. We won the turnover battle. I mean, we did everything we needed to do. We just didn't come out with the victory. And a lot of that lies on the defensive side. The offense, as you can see, got check marks for all 4 of their keys to the game because they scored 31 points. That should have been enough to win this football game. Should have been enough to win this football game. You go to the defense. Limit DeAndre Swift for the 2nd time this season. He was a non-factor in the game, and that's the way we like it. That's the way, we like it. We always find a way to take away the other team's, you know, threat at the running back position. Usually, we do a good job of that. We did that again with DeAndre Swift. Jamie Davis had a one-on-one coverage with him. He beat him, but it was good coverage by, you know, Jamie Davis, and he didn't get caught up in illegal contact down the field like he had done the game before. He kept his hands off of him. He turned. He ran. It was a double move. I thought it was a great job by Jamin Davis, and make him make a throw, and he didn't make the throw. So we limited DeAndre Swift in this game. The next key defensively was contain, hit, disrupt, and turn over Jalen Hurts, and we didn't do that in this game. We're the only team that seems to not be able to force him into a mistake this season. Just like Sam Howell loves seeing the Eagles, Jalen Hurts loves seeing us, because he's turned the ball over in every single game this season except the 2 games against us. Now, they turned it over twice in this game. He had nothing to do with either one of the turnovers. We didn't get to him enough. Our blitzes were trash. We didn't confuse their offensive line. I'm not even asking for you to be exotic. Just overload a side. Pick a side. Personally, preferably I would overload the right side and force him to his left and dare him to throw across his body because I don't think he can do it. His arm isn't strong enough. And have somebody waiting on that left side in case he tries to scramble out. Like, I'm just so disgusted with our blitz scheme because it doesn't force any pressure. It doesn't put any strain. They don't even have to think or over communicate. It's a simple blitz pickup. You got that guy, I got this guy, you get that guy, you get that guy, and the running back will get the other guy, and we're good. It's not hard. They're not making it tough to where somebody can get confused, two guys blocking one, and somebody comes free. We didn't hit him enough. We only sacked him twice, I believe, in this game. He was banged up. We should have gotten to him more. We didn't disrupt him enough. He was too comfortable back there. And for the most part, we contained him. He didn't really take off the run. He didn't have to. We didn't flush him enough. We got no credit for that. He was too damn comfortable back there, if you ask me. Way too damn comfortable. 4 touchdown passes, no turnovers, never really looked flustered back there. He was compromised, and we didn't take advantage of it. The Cowboys will, though, but we didn't. No big explosives was the next key. I gave us half credit. We didn't have the back-breaking, 42, 37-yard touchdowns, but A.J. Brown still dug in our ass. And he still had the one to Devontae Smith that was wide-ass open. But for the most part, they even the touchdowns to A.J. Brown, they were well covered. He just made plays. And the Devontae Smith one, obviously that's a breakdown, like mental breakdown. Danny Johnson is the culprit that I'm pointing to, and I'm just going to assume he didn't get the call. Everybody else knew what the play was except for Danny Johnson. And so it's disappointing, but it wasn't like we had a guy that just got beat and he just was too slow to cover, or, the Danny Johnson one is the one that just pisses me off to no end because it's avoidable. Just over communicate clarity. But I gave us half credit. It wasn't as bad as it had been, against other teams, especially this Eagles team the first time, which was just ridiculous. Still can't have it. Half credit. Probably should be no credit, to be honest with you, but I'm being a little generous. And then the last one was win the turnover and end of half battles. Well, we won the turnover battle 2-1. And so the end of half battles are interesting. I gave us half credit for this one, by the way, because we won the turnover battle, but the end of half battles, we won the end of the first half. Now, if we truly would have delivered the knockout blow, converted 4th and 1, and went on to score a touchdown and go up 21-3, the game would have been over. We would have won this football game going away. We might have blown them out in this game. But, because they couldn't stop our offense. So they weren't going to be able to make up that difference. But that turnover on downs and the subsequent touchdown by the Eagles, and instead of being down 18, they were only down 4 at 14-10. We still came back, and I said this with 34 seconds and 3 timeouts. I said, we have enough time to go. They can't stop us. We got enough time to go get a field goal. And what do? We went and got a field goal. So we won the end of the first half, even though that deficit was trimmed. They wrestled the momentum away, and we went back and got it. But we didn't win the end of the half in the second half. You got the 2 drops, you got the interception, and then you got the forced fumble on 4th down and, the subsequent touchdown. We made too many mistakes at the end of the game. And although we scored a touchdown, trimmed it back to 1 score, and had a chance with an onside kick, and that was actually a pretty good kick by Joey Slott. I'd like to see Percival Butler be more aggressive in that situation. He kind of was like tiptoeing. Go and mollywop him. Go and mollywop or dive after the ball. He kind of was like watching the ball. Don't watch the ball. Go and smash Devontae Smith. They want to put a 165-pound receiver there. Tear his damn ribs up. But that's not what happened there. So really disappointed that we didn't have a chance at that onside. It was really a good onside kick, to be honest with you. But all in all, we didn't win at the end of the second half. And so for that, half credit. But they battled. They gave themselves a chance, but you'd like to see us find a way to get it done in that situation, and we didn't. So when you total it all up, though, it's a 6 out of 8. That again, that's gonna win you most games. I've already talked to you guys about, you know, that kind of performance should win you a game. And when you scored 31, you should win the game. Of course, we didn't, and you know why. The defense was the biggest culprit. The coaching staff as well. You know, I really thought that the coaching staff let us down, but the defense continues to be a problem. And you know, for those of you who, after 5 games, Jack always gets it right. Sure, you're right. As far as Montez Sweat is concerned, with that loss, I think he's played his last down in Washington. I just think it's a formality at this point. Ron talked at the podium, and some of the things he said led me to draw an inference that it leads me to a conclusion that I had already come to anyway. I told you guys I thought Montez Sweat had played his last snap as a Washington Commander already. But and you know, listen to those guys in the locker room, and we'll talk about that in other news. You could tell they don't want to be broken up, but it's the nature of the business. So Montez Sweat. So the offer now is being, you know, clarified. So right now, and I told you that Nikki Javala pretty much reported that there's an offer on the table right now for Montez Sweat of a 3rd-round pick. She even went as far as to say it's a conditional 3rd-round pick. So what the terms of the conditions are is that you get a 3rd initially, and if Montez Sweat signs an extension, it turns into a 2. I'd do that deal right now, personally. Now, I'd wait to see if somebody else just gives me a 2 straight up and I don't have to worry about any terms of conditions. But I don't know if you guys are paying attention. Do you see what the Seahawks just gave up for Leonard Williams? To me, if you could get that kind of a haul for Leonard Williams, a 2 and a 5, we should be able to get something comparable for Montez Sweat. And I've heard that the defensive end market is depressed because there are going to be a lot of defensive ends available in free agency this offseason, and so that's something to consider, yada, yada, yada. I ain't trying to hear that shit. If you really want to upgrade your team at this trade deadline and you're serious about getting your hands on Montez Sweat, this is what it's going to take. And I'm looking at what the Giants were able to coop for a guy in Leonard Williams who ain't really done shit this season. I'm saying to myself, hey, we need to be on something like that. So while that conditional 3 that could turn into a 2 sounds good, I'm looking at what the Giants just got, and I'm like, nah, to hell with that. Why we can't get a 2 and a 5 for Montez Sweat? So he's gone. It's just a matter of to who and for what. But he's gone. So as we transition into in other news, we heard from Ronald Rivera today, day after presser. We'll get to what he had to say in a second. I want to kind of go into the conversation surrounding the trade deadline a little bit more and what the players after the game had to say. But before we do that, let's take a look at the snap counts from Week 8's game against the Eagles real quick and see if there are any players that you feel like should have had more or less opportunity. So as we get into it, 72 offensive snaps in week number 8. And as you can see, the entire offensive line and Sam Howell played all 72 snaps as you would expect, which is a good sign. All those guys should be ready to go next week. And I think this is the most confidence we've had in the offensive line all season long, and I'd like to see this group stay intact for as long as humanly possible. Terry McLaurin, as he customarily does, played the most snaps outside of the quarterback in the offensive line at 68, so 94% of the snaps for Terry. Jahan, 61 snaps, 85%. Logan Thomas played 74% of the snaps at 53 snaps. Antonio Gibson, 37. Brian Robinson, 35. That's the kind of distribution I like to see at the running back position. Like I feel like each week it's been skewed. One guy's been playing way more than the other, and it's just like, why? That's where it should be. They should be kind of splitting reps or even on the field at the same time. Like, that's not illegal. You can put both of these guys on the field at the same time. I like that breakdown right there. Gibson with 37 snaps, 51%, and Brian Robinson with 35. I'd like to see him maybe have a little uptick because he's getting more carries. But maybe if we've got a lead, we'll see that at the end of a game. I don't know. We're never in a position to actually burn clock and be up and have our 4-minute offense out there and trying to run out the clock. So maybe we can do that this week against New England. Who knows? We'll see. But 49% of the snaps from Brian Robinson Jr. John Bates, 34 snaps, 47%. Jamison Crowder, as we saw, he had an uptick because of the injury to Curtis Samuel. He played 23 offensive snaps and made the most of them. Had 7 catches for 94 yards, so he was getting busy. Was J.C. Ice with the touchdown, I may add, 32% of the snaps. Dyami Brown, I know you guys saw his post on Twitter. We'll talk about that here in a second. He had 22 snaps, 31%. Curtis Samuel, as I mentioned, left the game briefly in the first quarter after a wide receiver screen, came back, tried to give it a go, and left quickly thereafter in the second quarter, did not return, only 14 snaps for 19% of the offensive snaps in the game. Byron Pringle, 7 snaps, 10%. Alex Arma, again, all 6 of his snaps coming in the first half when the run game was at its best, and Arma was a huge part of that, under center. 8%. Even called a fullback screen that I thought Terry McLaurin blew it on. Either you got to get the hell out of there running a route and take that corner out of the mix, or you got to block. Terry did neither, and Alex Armour had space on that screen. That was a well-constructed, well-drawn-up, poorly executed screen. Terry gets his block done. Alex Armour's going to have some room to roam. Now, again, it is what it is. Terry had a rough day. I'll just say it that way. Terry had a rough day. Moving right along to the defense, 63 defensive snaps in the game total. And as we usually see, there's a core group of guys that are, it's about 4 or 5 every week that play all of the defensive snaps. Percy Butler, Cam Curl, Kendall Fuller, Jamin Davis, Benjamin St. Juste are those 5 guys this week. Played. So Jamin Davis had the green dot. He was the communicator of the defense. He was the one that was on the field all the time. And you know what? I'm not opposed to that. Like, why can't we have him be the middle backer and have, you know, Khaleke Hudson be the outside backer, right? Or Jabril Cox or somebody with some athleticism. Like, I mean, I know they still had David Mayo on the field a ton. And even though Jamin Davis had the green dot, he still wasn't playing middle backer. But I'd just like to see them be smarter about that. But whatever. David Mayo, as I just mentioned, 55 snaps, 87%. Deron Payne, 52 snaps, 83%. Chase Young, 50 snaps, 79%. Jonathan Allen, 47 snaps, 75%. Montez Sweat, 42 snaps, 67%. Danny Johnson, 39 snaps, 62%. John Ridgeway, 24 snaps, 38%. James Smith-Williams, 21 snaps, 33%. Fedarian Mathis, 14 snaps in his first game, really, since being drafted in the second round in the 2022 NFL Draft. 22% of the snaps. Casey Tuill, 13 snaps, 21%. Khaleke Hudson down significantly from the week prior, which I told you it would be. 10 snaps in this game for Khaleke, 16%. Quan Martin, 5 snaps. Emmanuel Forbes, 5 snaps, 8% for each of your first and second round picks. And F.A. Obata played 1 single snap for 2% of the defensive snaps in the game. So what says you? Offensive side of football, defensive side. For me, I would like to have seen more of Alex Arma. You know, I got this thing for the fullback. I think the run game works better when you have a fullback, a lead blocker. I've always been a fan of a lead blocker as opposed to single back. But that's just me. I always like somebody leading my running back into the hole. That's why I think the counter plays with us and the delays work, because you got guys pulling and leading up into the hole. It's easy for the running back to read that block and cut off of it. I just think Alex Arma should have played more than 6 snaps. For me, defensively, I really don't see anything necessarily too wonky. F.A. only playing 1 snap is interesting. Casey only playing 13, but James Smith-Williams playing 21. But James Smith-Williams is more stout at the point of attack. So there's that. David Mayo playing so many snaps is problematic for me. But we already knew. Jack Del Rio told us Dave, as he calls him, was going to be the guy that saw an uptick in snaps, and he didn't lie to us. And so it is what it is. What says you? But let's address Dyami Brown real quick. I know you guys saw the Twitter post where he said, "I'm sick of this." That was essentially what he said, or "I'm tired of this," something to that effect, one or the other, which clearly indicates that if he's talking about, you know, his situation here in Washington, and he could be talking about something else. That's the thing. When guys put out cryptic tweets, we just assume they're talking about the situation with the team, and more likely than not, he is. All right. But he could be talking about something totally different, you know. There could be some issues at home, and one of the ways he communicates with his family members is through social media. And Aunt Carol could be tripping again, and he could be like, "Man, I'm sick of this," and the other family members know exactly what he's talking about. That's probably not. You see how I'm trying to, come up with a whole scenario. He's probably talking about this team. Tired of not having opportunities. How many snaps did Dyami Brown play in this game anyway? Let's go back to the offensive snaps. Dyami Brown played 22 snaps, so he got out there. It's not like he wasn't out there. He just did get. He had the reverse on an early possession that didn't work, and I want to say that might have been the first possession of the game. We went with that reverse, and it didn't work. And I don't think he was targeted at all in the game. I don't think he had a single target now that I'm thinking about it. But Byron Pringle did, and seems to get one every game, or two, or three. And Jamison Crowder stepped in and got a bunch of targets and catches and made plays. So maybe he's looking at like, damn, how dudes that just got here leapfrog me on the depth chart and getting opportunities like I ain't been busting my ass all season. Like I ain't done everything y'all asked me to do. So, and this, for some people, they're looking at this as, hey, there's starting to be a fracture in the locker room. Guys are starting to speak up. Guys are starting to get frustrated. This thing could snowball. It could get ugly. It could get out of control. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how things go, right? But I think I don't know if he deleted it or if he made it a private post or what. But where there's smoke, usually there's fire. I'm not too concerned about this. I'm not personally, but we'll see what happens. I'm more concerned with what they're going to ultimately do at this trade deadline, which leads us to what Ron was talking about at the podium. So Ronald spoke today, as he always does on Mondays, whether we win or lose. And the first thing that interests me was his discussion surrounding Sam. He said Sam played a fantastic game. It was by far and away the best game the offensive line in front of him has played. So go figure. Sam has his best game of his career in the NFL to date. 4 touchdown passes, almost 40 completions. Sam set a bunch of franchise records in this game. The 24 completions he had at halftime set a Washington Commanders record. The 39 completions is the second most completions a receiver or a quarterback has had in the NFL this season, behind Justin Herbert's 40 that he had against the Vikings in like week 3. So Sam was tearing it up, right? But the offensive line was outstanding, and Ron gave them their credit. Talked about the size differential and what the guys that like Tyler Larson and Chris Paul brought to the table, and thought that they did a phenomenal job, which they did. I agree. And he said Sam's growth and development is why I'm still optimistic about this season turning around, is because we put a little bit more on his plate, and he handled it, and he passed that test with flying colors. And we really feel like I was just waiting for Ron to say, we scored 31. Sam played his ass off, and we gave up 38. We can't do that. The defense can't give up 38 points. But he didn't do that. I wanted him to acknowledge that this wasn't an offensive loss. This was a coaching and defensive loss. But he's not going to do that. And nor should he. But that's what I want. I want accountability from the guys that we need to hear it from most, because they've been quick to point the finger, or Ron has, not anybody else. Ron has been quick to point the finger at the players, do your job, this, that, and the third, but yet you're not doing your job as a coach. Jack's not doing his job, putting guys in better positions to succeed. But that's nor here nor there. He was really complimentary of Sam, really excited about what Sam is doing, as most of us are. And then, they asked him questions about the trade deadline in clever ways, and credit to Ron for shutting all of them down. Even Nikki Javala got super creative. If one of the ends or both of them weren't here per se, hypothetically, who would take their spots? And he's like, hypothetically, we'll address that when we get past the trade deadline. So, but here's the thing that I found interesting that Ron said. Ronald basically said that when he was asked by J.P. Finley, point blank, cut and dry, how do you feel like the defensive line has done this season? And he's like, he was measured in his assessment. He tried to be diplomatic. They've had their moments. They've had, spots where they've played really well, and, they've done some good things at times. That's his way of saying they ain't did the shit that they were supposed. So JP being the veteran that he is, wasn't gonna let that diplomatic answer slide. He had to press him a little bit more, which I appreciate. He was like, so would you say that you've gotten out of them what you've expected this year? Which is the right question to ask. Because when you leave it open-ended, like, how do you think they've done? Anybody can tiptoe around that. But let me ask you a more pointed question. Have you gotten out of them what you expected when you think about 4 first-rounders and 2 guys in particular that you've already paid money to? Have you gotten what you thought you should have gotten out of them? And he's like, nah, not really. We expect more. We've seen flashes. They've had times where they've impacted the game, i.e. Montez Sweat week 1 against Arizona, right? The defensive line I thought was really good against Denver after a slow start. They got after Russell Wilson. They sacked him. They harassed him. So, yeah, there were games early in the season where I felt like they made their presence felt. But really, they haven't since then, to be honest with you. We've sacked quarterbacks 3-4 times, but you didn't feel it. You didn't impact the Bears game. You didn't impact the Giants game. You didn't impact games that you should have impacted. You didn't impact either one of the Eagles games, for that matter. So, yeah, he was like, nah. And I think it's that thought process right there. That thought process right there that's going to force them to make a move. And I see it being Tez, as I've mentioned already. There's an offer already on the table that I think they're willing to take, but they're going to push the envelope. And now that you saw what Leonard Williams drew in New York with the Seahawks, I got to think that they're saying, hey, if they can fetch that for Leonard Williams, our guy's better than him. I get it, 2 different positions. Our guy's better than that, though. Come on, man. Our guy got another sack, even though that sack should have been given to Daron Payne. He caused all the pressure and caused Jalen Hurts with immediate pressure off the snap to step up into Montez Sweat, who got credit for a full sack. Tez's numbers are really good, and they jump out at you. He's well on his way to double-digit sacks this year. We should be able to get a 2 and some change for him. That's what I think, personally. But we'll see what happens. Rivera said, look, we still got 9 games left. I'm confident in this offense. He didn't say anything about the defense. This is the part that I struggle with. And he said the defensive breakdowns should not have happened. Guys didn't communicate enough on that play. He didn't want to point any fingers. But we all know he's talking about Danny. Danny didn't get the call, clearly. And he's like, that can't happen. He talked about Emmanuel Forbes being out there and how, they trying to work him back in, but there's still things he's got to work on. That's coaching right there. That's malpractice on their part. Because, cool, you want to get him in there? Find a way to get him in there where he's not covering A.J. Brown. And again, if I'm the Eagles, I'm going to find him. I'm going to make sure that 11 finds 13. Right? So if you put him on the field, I'm going to find him, which they did. However, I'm not putting him on the field when we get close to the end zone. If I'm going to give something up, it's going to be the first 3-4 plays of the possession. Emmanuel can see the field. He can be on the field. And if he gives up 17 yards and it's out to the Eagles' 42-yard line, okay, get your ass off the field. I bring my guys so that the touchdown isn't imminent. Both of his completions that he gave up either led to a touchdown or put the Eagles within striking distance. We forced a fumble on one of them, right? He gives up the big completion that I talked about the 3.4 seconds on the deep comeback, which he wasn't even close. He was bailing the entire time. Like, bro, the end zone's behind you. Where you going? He was bailing the whole time. Right? And so AJ puts the brakes on, comes back, easy completion, pitch and catch. But it was too much damn time, first of all. No pressure, like it had been most of the day. But even then, we still forced a fumble. So I wasn't tripping. The touchdown, he got manhandled. And this is where him just being a sack of bones comes into play. Because A.J. Brown literally took one hand, tossed his ass aside, went and caught the football, and got into the end zone. It was definitely OPI, but they're not calling that shit. Because you're a little boy. He didn't extend or nothing. He just shoved him. Just a little flick of the wrist. Get your little ass out of here. And he went flying 3 yards and he caught the ball. That's why as soon as you look at the play, he gets up and he turns to the officials and he goes, y'all gonna let him do that to me? And the officials like, do what? His wind that he blew across you knocked you 3 yards down the field. You so damn frail, his trailing wind knocked your ass 3 yards up past the damn play. We ain't giving you shit, man. Get physical. Let's get physical. So he's got some work to do, man. But all in all, we're trading Montez Sweat. Now the question is, what are we going to get? I think he's going to be the only guy that gets moved, by the way. I don't see anything else happening with any of our other veterans. Curtis Samuel would have been interesting. Kendall Fuller is interesting. I don't think they're moving Kendall. I don't think that Jacoby Brissett's going anywhere. They'd have to get a deal that blows them away. I said that all along. If somebody came at you, you're not getting anything more than a day 3 pick for Jacoby Brissett. But I thought about this. If you're serious about making something of your season, you're more likely to have a shot to do something by going and getting Ryan Tannehill from the Titans. Because after the performance Will Levis just put out, he's not starting another game for the Titans. There's no reason for Ryan Tannehill to start another game. So if you're the Titans, the Vikings come calling. That's a guy that I think would be interesting. If you're the Browns and you're looking for somebody to upgrade your situation, that's the kind of guy I'm looking at. Not Jacoby Brissett, but, you know, I don't think anybody else other than Montez Sweat is getting moved. That's my personal opinion. But we'll see. Trade deadline is tomorrow at 4. Something will get done. We've already seen one trade happen. It will not be the last trade happen. The New York Giants traded Leonard Williams to the Seattle Seahawks for a 2nd round and 5th round pick in next year's draft. Like I said, if they can get that for Leonard Williams, who has done absolutely nothing this year, what should we get for a guy that's got like 6 or 7 sacks this season in Montez Sweat? I'm hard pressed to think that a 3 that can turn into a 2 is enough for a premier position like defensive end and a guy that's giving you production. So anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. Y'all know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow. We'll have a ton to talk about tomorrow. Trade deadline is tomorrow, so there will be a ton to talk about, and then we'll really be able to comb over everything. We'll hear from the coaching staff on Wednesday, so we'll really have a lot to talk about, why they made the decision to move on from Tez and what they ultimately got, and we'll hear all of that stuff on Wednesday. And Ron did talk about Curtis Samuel's foot. It doesn't sound good. He's like, right now they're just saying it's sore. He's going to have another MRI to kind of determine, you know, what's really going on there, what's causing the foot soreness. Jamison Crowder stepped up, and that was huge for us, so that's a good thing. But, you know, that could be a big loss for us moving forward. And then Ricky Stromberg did, in fact, hurt himself. He said, the viewers out there that said Ricky Stromberg got hurt, that you were right. They don't really know the extent of the injury yet, but he's getting an MRI. We'll know more on Wednesday. Again, his doesn't sound very good either. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys take care. God bless. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone. He's gone. Touchdown.